The silence in the Terran war room wasn't peace, it was the stillness. Before a detonation, Commander Hal Crane stood at the center of the hollow table, staring at the slow turning image of the galactic map. The red line marking the Sol border had been drawn thicker today, bold and unshakable. It meant war or worse, defiance. Across from him sat High Strategist Dorn, his fingers steepled, face weathered by too many campaigns. He didn't speak, neither did anyone else, because everyone in that room knew what they'd just done. They'd closed the border, not temporarily, not symbolically, permanently. Terran Command had broadcast the message 15 minutes ago to every sector. Effective immediately, Terran space is sovereign. All intergalactic travel across the Sol border is terminated. No vessels may cross, Empire or not. No consultation, no negotiation, just a cold final decree, and the galaxy was listening. Crane didn't feel like a victor, not yet, not until the first Imperial envoy came knocking, demanding answers, making threats, pretending this wasn't the beginning of the end, but it was. He turned toward the room, clearing his throat. Put me through to the Admiral, now. The comp nodded, and the screen lit up with static before the sharp, scarred face of Admiral Roth appeared mid-orbit on board the warship Lancer 9. You sealed it. Roth's voice was calm, but there was a note of disbelief. Tell me you didn't. Blink. We sealed it. Borders locked. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out. Roth's jaw flexed. Hell, that's a move they can't ignore. That's the point, Crane said. Because Earth had spent 70 years as a backwater system at the Empire's mercy, paying tribute in ore, blood, and silence. No seat at the Senate, no vote, no voice. Just shipments and subservience. They'd watched humans drafted into wars they never started. Colonies were bled dry to power imperial cores, and when Earth protested, they were told they were lucky to be part of the Empire at all. That was over now, but the Empire didn't take disobedience lightly, and Crane knew their response wouldn't be diplomatic, it would be kinetic. We've mobilized defensive grids at Luna and Mars, Roth said. First fleets shadowing the gate, seconds holding off. At Neptune, we're ready. Good. Keep silent comms for now. Let them guess. You think they'll hit first? Crane nodded slowly. They always do. Hours passed. The galaxy blinked. And then it blinked back. The first Imperial broadcast came from Sector 9, the outer reaches just beyond the closed zone. The Empire's representative, some decorated lizard, royal gold, addressed the galaxy like a disappointed father. The Terran sector has forgotten its place. This disruption of lawful transit is a breach of galactic harmony. The Empire will restore balance swiftly. Crane watched the speech with his fists clenched. Balance, that was their word for control. Harmony, that was code for obedience. But Earth didn't fear them anymore. The signal cut, and another voice chimed in behind him. Major Tran, young but sharp. Scanner shows 6 Imperial patrol ships holding off near the gate, just sitting there. They're waiting for us to flinch, Crane muttered. Let them wait. Night didn't exist in space, but Earth's hemisphere turned, and the black side of the planet watched the stars with quiet anticipation. Civilians were told nothing, just routine gate maintenance, lies, necessary ones. The truth was too big, too bloody. The truth would spark riots or rebellion, because once you shut the galaxy out, you had to be ready to survive without it, and worse, fight to defend that choice. Crane stepped out onto the observation deck, eyes locked on the sky. Somewhere out there, the Empire's admirals were sharpening their knives. Somewhere a plan was forming. Let them come, he thought. This time Earth wouldn't kneel. This time they wouldn't beg or apologize or donate soldiers to foreign wars. This time Earth drew the line and dared them to cross it, and when they did, the stars would burn. They came at 400 Terran Standard Time. 3 ships, Imperial, not scouts. Enforcers. Black curved hulls like knives against the stars, engines silent, weapons dormant. They hovered just beyond the closed soul border, pretending patience. Crane stood in the underground command pit with his arms crossed, watching the live feed from the orbital array. "They're testing us," Major Terran muttered beside him. The young officer's voice trembled slightly, but not from fear, adrenaline, maybe anticipation. "They want to see if we'll blink." "We won't," Crane replied. His tone was flat, deliberate. He didn't even look at the kid, because that was the thing about the Empire. They'd spent so long at the top, they thought everyone else had forgotten how to fight, but Earth hadn't. Not really. They just learned how to swallow the pain. Now they were choking it back up. The Empire's lead, Derek VI, opened comms. No encryption, no decorum. "Terran Command, this is Commander Lisk of the Galactic Enforcement Fleet. You are violating open gate treaties ratified by the High Accord. This transmission serves as formal warning. Stand down, reopen the Soul Gate immediately, or face disciplinary action." It was a threat dressed as diplomacy. Typical. Crane leaned closer to the hollow table and spoke without raising his voice. "Commander Lisk, this is Terran Commander Hal Crane. Your presence within 20 clicks of the Sol border is a violation of sovereign space. You are hereby ordered to turn around and return to Imperial territory. You will not be warned again." The room went still. The comms operator looked like he'd forgotten to breathe, but Crane didn't blink. He meant every word. The Empire responded by doing exactly what Crane expected. Nothing. They sat there, not backing off, not firing either. It was the kind of move you used against animals to show dominance without wasting energy. Like a wolf standing at the edge of a rival's territory, daring him to react. Crane had seen that tactic before. He used to believe in restraint too, back when Earth still thought negotiation was the way forward, back when they still sent envoys, back before the Arcturus massacre, back when his older brother, Commander John Crane, and 7,000 Terran troops were wiped out for refusing to follow an illegal planetary purge order. And what had the Empire said then? A misunderstanding, a necessary miscommunication, regretful, no trials, no apologies, no reparations, just ashes and silence. And now they expected obedience again. No, not this time. Give them a deadline. Admiral Roth crackled in over the secure channel. He was stationed just behind the moon with a loaded fleet. "We can't let this drag." "Agreed," Crane replied. 1 hour, then we go to Red." Roth chuckled. "About damn time." In the meantime, Crane walked the long metal corridors of Terran Command's central core alone. There were no windows down here, no star views or grand panoramas like the Empire's polished halls, just steel wires, reinforced shielding. It wasn't meant to look beautiful. It was built to survive a direct plasma strike, which was exactly the point. The silence followed him like an old wound. He walked past old debrief rooms, past training zones, past the memorial wall. Over 2,000 names etched into the metal plates. He stopped at one. John Crane, Commander Kia, Arcturus IV. His fingers hovered just over the cold name plate, then clenched back into a fist. It wasn't grief that filled him. It was purpose, back in the command pit. The timer ran down, 59 to 30. Zeromo 5. When it hit 0, Crane didn't flinch. He nodded once. Transmit final warning to the Imperial vessels, then jam their comms. Major Tran turned. Jam them, they don't get to threaten us. And broadcast propaganda while they stall. Crane said, if they're here to talk, they'll answer directly. If they're here to fight, we'll see it soon. Enough. Tran hesitated, then gave the order. Jammers engaged. The feed flickered. The Empire's voice was silenced. The reaction came less than 3 minutes later. Not words. Missiles, 3 clean streaks of plasma. Tipped weaponry launched from the lead ship, screaming toward the Soul Gates. Primary defense satellite, fast, direct. Clean but not fast enough. Terran. Commands AI. Gideon engaged interceptors. In microsecond sans, defensive rails. Activated, tiny hunter-kill drones. Launch from the orbital cage. Missile was ripped apart midspace in a bloom of controlled flame. No impact, no breach, but that was it. The war had started and they had fired first. Return fire, Crane said calmly. Sir. Confirm, Tran asked, already typing into the system. Crane didn't blink. Hit them hard. Within seconds, the moon's pulse batteries lit up. Beams of raw solar-charged energy carved through the void, targeting the closest ship. Direct hit, not enough to destroy, but enough to send a message. And that message was, Earth doesn't wait for orders anymore. The second volley came from Neptune fleet. Admiral Roth's hunters had already flanked. The Imperial formation broke. Crane watched the tactical display as one ship drifted, damaged, another reversed course, and the third tried to hide behind their own jamming field. Cowards, don't pursue. Crane ordered, let them limp home. You sure? Tran asked. We could. No, we don't strike to conquer, not yet. They'll report back. Let the Empire know what they're dealing with. Half an hour later, the debris field was clear. No Terran losses. 1 enemy ship crippled, 2 fled. For the first time in generations, Earth had bloodied the nose of the galaxy's top dog and didn't flinch when they growled. The news spread fast, despite efforts to contain it. The civilian net picked up the solar flare activity. The troop shifts, the energy spikes. On the streets of Old New York, people stopped to look up. In New Berlin, digital billboards displayed an old Terran slogan in bold white letters. No step back. In orbit, Crane sat in the debrief chamber with his command staff. Empire won't take this lightly, Roth said through the hollow feed. They'll mobilize fast, maybe not full fleet war, but enough to push. We hold, Crane replied. Let them choke on their pride. And if they escalate, then we go dark. Everyone in the room knew what that meant. Full system lockdown, no intergalactic signals, all gates disabled. Earth goes black on the map, a ghost system, a fortress. No more tribute, no more troops, no more deals. It was insane. It was suicidal. It was freedom. Late that night, or what passed for Night inside the buried halls of command, Crane sat alone in his quarters, staring at the old photograph. On his desk, a cracked image faded from years of movement, two brothers in uniform, laughing. John had his arms slung over his shoulder. Like always, he hadn't looked at it in a while, and now he couldn't look away. "You were right," he said softly. "We should have walked away years ago." Empire's shadow had stretched for too long, but Earth had claws now. And they weren't afraid to use them. In deep space, hundreds of light years away, the Empire convened an emergency war council on the throne world of Valyria. Massive golden-armored nobles screamed into holof feeds demanding action. The Terran had shut the door. They had fired on Imperial ships. They had closed the gate. It wasn't defiance. It was rebellion, and rebellion in the eyes of the Empire was contagious. If Earth was allowed to stand, others might follow. The Empire had to act, and it would. The next 48 hours were chaos. Dressed in silence, no more broadcasts came from the Empire. No ultimatums, no warnings, just a deafening void. But the sensors told the truth. They always did. Thousands of alien ships were on the move, tiny flickering blips on the Terran long-range scanners arcing across the outer rims of the quadrant. Not fast, not aggressive, but deliberate. They were shifting forces, rerouting logistics, gathering teeth behind the smile. A storm was building beyond the stars, and Earth had drawn the lightning. Commander Hal Crane stood in the observation core again, hands behind his back. The holographic map in front of him showed everything: fleet positioning, drone movement, defense layers, colony status, dozens of blinking lights, most red, some yellow, none green. There was no such thing as peace now, just pre-war status. Crane asked. Major Tran stepped up beside him, eyes bloodshot from 2 nights without sleep. "We've got 3 civilian colonies refusing to comply with the shutdown. They're scared, say they want to surrender to the Empire and negotiate peace independently." Crane didn't flinch. "Names?" Tran hesitated. "Theta Prime, Lacera Hub, and Theta Primes run by corporate remnants. No loyalty there. Get a strike team on the next outbound ship. If they make contact with the Empire, burn the colony's comms to the ground." Tran opened his mouth, hesitated again, then closed it. There was no more room for conscience. Not now, not when the entire planet was on the edge of being erased. Admiral Roth's voice came in next, crackling from the Luna Defense Network. "We've confirmed movement near the fracture line, 2 Imperial dreadnoughts, and at least 20 support craft." Crane's eyes narrowed. "Too far out to strike by conventional means?" "Yes, but Gideon thinks they're staging a rally point. They'll wait until enough mass gathers to hit hard and fast. Classic Empire siege formation. And the gate's still sealed. They're not trying to breach it yet." That was the part that bothered Crane the most. The Empire could have tried to punch through already. They could have sent in swarms, overwhelmed the orbital rings, landed troops, and reestablished peace in a week, but they hadn't. They were waiting, watching. And that meant they were planning something worse, a slow war, one that strangled Earth from the outside in. Crane clenched his jaw. "Prep for black signal." Roth's comm went quiet. "Then you sure we can't let them gather intelligence, cut us off completely from the outer relays?" "No outgoing data, no returning probes, no Signal traffic, Earth goes dark tonight. Roth let out a long breath. Understood. I'll begin the sequence. By midnight, Earth had vanished from the galactic network. At least the moment the black signal was triggered, every interstellar communication system within the Sol system was terminated or turned inward. Encryption walls snapped shut, sensor feeds were rerouted, drones turned home. The planet dropped off the grid like a dying star on the streets of Terran. Cities people noticed. Hollow screens flickered to static. Interplanetary comms failed. Alien broadcasts cut mid-sentence. The news spun wild theories. Solar storm network collapsed defensive drill, but everyone knew this wasn't a glitch. This was the beginning. Inside Terran command, the pressure started breaking through the steel. Crane returned to the lower briefing chamber, now repurposed as a strategic bunker. Officers filled the room, seated in tight clusters, eyes red, nerves shot. Some were from the Mars Authority, others from the Free Belt, even a few hardened veterans from the Century Campaign, gay-haired, one-eyed, bone-tired. Every man in the room had seen death up close, and still there was a heaviness in the air no combat zone ever held. We're not just at war, Colonel Hargan said, speaking for the first time in hours. We're at war alone. No reinforcements, no allies added. Another, we're a closed system now. That means closed supplies, closed medicine, closed everything. Crane nodded, walking to the head of the table. Which means we plan like we're already under siege. He tapped the hollow table. A map of Earth lit up. Cities, supply lines, defense grids. New York, Tokyo 3, and Cairo are the new global anchors. Will divide materials by sectors. Martial law is declared as of now. Any resistance is to be shut down immediately. Civilian rations begin. At 700, there was silence, then a grumble from the back. You think the people won't fight back? They don't even know what's coming. They'll know soon enough, Crane said. And if they fight back, they'll learn faster. By the next day, the first riots had already begun. In old Chicago, mobs tore through distribution centers, looking for ration stockpiles. In Kinshasa sector, a rogue militia tried to take control of a comm tower to make contact with the Empire, hoping to negotiate surrender. Crane sent in armed teams, no warnings. The tower was retaken, 17 dead, when a journalist from the Terran Free Broadcast accused him of brutality. Crane didn't do. He answered, on record, you don't negotiate with the men holding the knife. You kill them or die choking on your own blood. This isn't peacekeeping anymore. This is survival, and Earth will survive. It aired once, then went dark. 3 days later, the Empire made their first real move. Not an invasion, a gift. A shuttle breached the edge of Terran space. Small, unarmed, broadcasting an open signal. It drifted forward slowly. No weapons, no escorts, no shields. Just a sleek black hull with a single word carved across the side: Parley. Crane and the Council watched it approach with thinly veiled rage. They think we're that stupid, Hargan snapped. It's a spy ship, or worse, dirty bomb. Or maybe they really do want to talk, Tran offered, before they flatten us. Crane didn't blink. Then let them talk. But they come alone. No ships, no drones, no escort. They step out onto our soil, and they do it under a Terran gun. The others murmured, but no one objected. Not anymore. The meeting was set. Location, the ruins of Baikonur, once a launch site, now a wasteland reclaimed by silence and dust. Crane arrived first, flanked by 2 guards in blackout armor, the Empire's shuttle landed 20 m away in a graceful hush, no sound, no theatrics. The door hissed open and out stepped a human, or at least something close, tall, pale. Wore imperial robes, deep blue and silver, no helmet, no visible weapon. The man smiled as he approached. Commander Crane, a pleasure name. Crane said coldly, "They call me Envoy." "Mura, you're not Terran," the Envoy tilted his head. "No, not anymore, but once long ago." Crane didn't offer a handshake. "Say what you came to say, then get back in your coffin and drift home." Mirak's smile never broke. "You've made a bold decision, Commander. Admirable, misguided perhaps, but brave. We didn't ask your opinion, then let me offer facts instead," the Envoy said. Still calm, "The Empire will not allow this border to remain closed. You've wounded pride that spans 1,000 generations, and you've done it with what? A handful of ships, some orbital cannons and hardened bunkers." Crane said nothing. Myra stepped closer. "You cannot win, you know that, but you can survive if you reopen the gate now. Offer reparations, surrender the high command, dissolve Terran sovereignty. You'll be allowed to exist under guidance. And if we refuse," Mura's smile vanished, "then Earth dies screaming, not with a bang, but with rot, with famine, with whispers in the dark, and no one will come to help." Crane looked him dead in the eye. "Then we'll die standing." He turned and walked away. Mirak didn't follow. The shuttle lifted into the sky and vanished back toward the stars. That night Crane met with Admiral Roth. In the deep vault beneath command, they drank together in silence, cheap whiskey, no ceremony. "We're on the clock now," Roth finally said. "They'll hit us within the week. Hard, I know. You ever wonder if this was the right call?" Crane didn't answer immediately. He looked up at the ceiling, imagined the stars behind it, the darkness, the wait. "Every hour," he said finally. "But then I remember what it was like before, what they took, what they made us give." He set his glass down. "And then I remember I'd rather burn with dignity than live under their flag." Roth nodded slowly. "Then let's make the fire worth it." The Empire didn't wait a week. They hit Earth in 5 days, and they didn't come with battleships or armies. They came with silence, the kind that eats everything. It started with power. Blackouts in outer colonies, systems that weren't even close to the Sol border, simple outposts, old refueling stations, agricultural satellites. Every one of them went dark within 6 hours of each other. No transmissions, no distress calls, no debris fields, just absence, as if they had been plucked out of the void. By day 2, Gideon flagged 37 locations as dead zones. By day 3, the outer ring of supply convoys had vanished entirely. By day 4, Titan's moon-based Terran outpost Greyhold went completely offline. No warning, no alerts, no defenses triggered. 1 minute it was there, the next just dust on the scanner. Crane didn't sleep. He didn't speak much either. He just stared at the tactical displays like a man watching his own pulse drop, 1 heartbeat at a time. "They're not fighting us," Roth said. "Through secure comms, they're deleting us. They want us to crack." Crane replied, "Not bleed, not yet. They want fear." "Then they picked the wrong planet." Crane didn't answer. He wasn't so sure. Inside Terran command, paranoia spread. Like fire through dry grass, every hour. Brought new reports. Panic buying in the cities, food riots in the lower sectors. Whispers of sedition from colony. Officials, they hadn't even been fired. On yet, but Earth was already coming. Apart in the West African sector, an old mining dome collapsed during an unsanctioned evacuation attempt. 72 dead. Rescue teams refused to re-enter. Said they feared Imperial infiltration. In the orbital rings, AI crews shut down. Internal gravity for 3 hours to conserve power, nearly killing everyone on board. Crane ordered one of the AI cores. Scrapped after it ignored 3 override commands. He had it gutted in front of his staff. Its processors melted with thermite. It screamed the whole time. Let them watch, let them learn. Machines weren't immune to loyalty, and Earth wasn't safe from its own tech anymore. Then came the ghost signals. Not Imperial broadcasts, human voices. Cracked, distorted comms caught by long-range receivers buried in noise. Some were crying, some begging, some screaming for help from outposts that were already listed as destroyed. And others sounded like prayers. Not to any god. Crane knew to them, too. The Empire. We surrender, please. Our systems are shut down. Our atmosphere is failing. If you hear this, we are not with command. We are not with Crane. They left us. They abandoned us. Why should we die for Earth? We submit. We kneel, please. We're not fighters. Crane ordered every signal purged. Sir, Major Tran hesitated. Some of them might still be alive. Crane's voice was cold. If they're still alive, they'll survive. If they're not, they're already gone. I won't let their panic infect the rest of the system. But what if you ever question me again in front of a junior officer? Crane said without turning, I'll have your uniform stripped in the hallway and send you back to your parents in a cryopod. Tran went pale, didn't say another word. Later that night, Crane stood in his quarters staring at the mirror. He barely recognized himself anymore. The beard had gone gray in patches. His eyes looked hollow, sunken, shoulders heavier, like something inside him had been replaced with stone. He remembered a time he used to smile, maybe even laugh. That man was dead now. The one who replaced him didn't feel guilt, didn't flinch, because the man who ruled Earth now had no room for mercy. 2 days later, the first ground strike came. Not on Earth, on Ceres, one of the last functioning outposts in the asteroid belt. It wasn't even military, just a mining facility, half-automated, a few hundred workers. The Empire didn't send troops, they sent atmospheric disruptors, 12 low-orbit projectiles. Deployed a synthetic gas field that corroded every life support system from the inside out. Within 3 minutes, every oxygen recycler failed, every artificial climate control unit reversed polarity, every emergency beacon jammed. 312 Terran workers suffocated to death. In silence, the last recorded message came from a kid, barely 20. Why are we being punished? What do we do? Crane listened to the file once. Just once, then he called Roth. Prep. Orbital weapons, full response. You want to target the fleet? No, I want to target them, the colonies that have already flipped. Roth hesitated. Crane. They've opened their gates. They've let Empire ships land. They're flying Imperial flags. That's betrayal. They're civilians. Crane's tone dropped to steel. They're enemies now. A long pause, then Wrath said, "Understood." The strikes happened before dawn. 3 former Terran colonies that had broken with command were hit with orbital kinetic rods, metal rods dropped from orbit with no explosives, just mass and velocity, old weapons from a forgotten war. They called it rods from God. Each impact hit like a small nuke minus the radiation, clean, brutal, unmistakable. The message was simple: there is no middle ground. You were either with Earth or you were part of the wreckage. The media spun out of control after that. Leaked footage, civilian screams, flame-covered domes, kids pulled from rubble. Crane gave a speech 2 hours later, standing in front of the burned insignia of the Empire on a broken flag. They called us savages when we closed the border. They called us traitors when we defended our homes, and now they call us murderers for holding our own people accountable. Let them call us anything they want. Names don't protect you from invasion. Resolve does. It was broadcast across every Terran channel, still active, and for the first time, no one protested, not out loud, but the cracks were spreading deeper than Crane could see. In the Pacific bunker complex, group of officers had begun holding secret meetings, whispers of mutiny, not open revolt, just strategic surrender. "Let's give them Crane," one of them said, not knowing their words were being recorded. "He's the symbol. Remove him, reopen the border, and we survive. Maybe they even let us keep some autonomy." That same night, a dozen of them disappeared. No trial, no public record. Just gone. Terran never asked where they went, but he stopped speaking without being spoken to. After that, then came the second envoy, same ship, same man, Merc. This time he didn't land, he broadcast from orbit. "Commander Crane, you are no longer viewed as a representative of the human race. You are viewed as a rogue extremist. Your people suffer for your pride, for your failure to accept your place in the galaxy." Crane responded from the command pit, live, "I accept nothing. You can burn the sky, salt the moons, crush every dome and city. You'll still lose because we've learned how to fight, and we're not fighting for planets. We're fighting for the right to decide who we are." Mirok's face didn't move. "Then Earth will die with you." The next morning, Gideon's early warning system triggered across every screen in command. "Mass fleet signature detected. Sector 51 trajectory, Earth impact, window 72 hours." Crane stared at it for a long moment. There it was, no more probes, no more silence. The war had truly begun. 72 hours, that was the countdown. 72 hours until the sky turned black with ships. 72 hours until Earth stood face to face with the biggest war fleet the galaxy had ever fielded against a single planet. And every second ticked like a hammer in Commander Hal Crane's skull. The war room was a blur of motion now. Officers barking coordinates, engineers rerouting power grids, colony liaison demanding evacuation clearances, chaos organized by fear. Crane didn't speak often anymore. He didn't need to. His presence alone carved silence through rooms. Every man in uniform knew one thing: Crane was the wall they were hiding behind, and if the wall cracked, the flood came. The Gideon AI had mapped the incoming force to the best of its ability. Estimated 1,700 ships across 4 command formations. The synthetic voice echoed calmly through the darkened chamber. 70. Dreadnought Class 8 Carriers 3. Superfortress Cruisers, Imperial Signal. Architecture confirmed. Major Terran hunched over the display. Looked like he hadn't eaten in days. This isn't a siege fleet, he muttered. This is an extermination force. Crane said nothing. He'd seen the projections. He knew what it meant. The Empire wasn't coming to conquer. They were coming to erase. What's our best shot? He finally asked. Gideon flickered for a second. Direct engagement would result in a 97% casualty rate across all defense lines. Within 13 hours, Terran fleet cannot match the enemy on ship count, mass, or sustained bombardment. I'm not asking for odds, I'm asking for shots. The A paused. Option 1, decentralized guerrilla. Resistance using cloaked hunter kill. Drones in asteroid fields and orbital debris. Estimated disruption 6.4%, 4% of fleet momentum. Option 2, atmospheric hardening and planetary energy grid redirection. Create artificial M bursts to disrupt long range comms and targeting. Estimated effectiveness 3.7%. Option 3, first strike contingency. Silence followed. Crane's hands slowly curled into fists. The room held its breath. Show me. Hollow map lit up again, this time with a much older design, a weapon never tested, only theorized, buried in Terran black files for decades. Project Abyss. A zero-point gravitic implosion device. Crafted during Earth's final civil war, but scrapped when the Galactic Accord deemed it inhuman. The weapon didn't explode, it collapsed. Everything light matter ships. Physics, it was a black hole in a bottle. Estimated kill radius, Crane asked. 25,000 km in open space, Gideon replied. Collateral would include outer planetary debris fields and Terran orbital structures. Probability of localized gravitational instability 19%. In other words, suicide. Tran blinked. We'd lose the moon, the ring, half our satellites. And so would they, Crane said coldly. There was no time to mourn the choices, only to make them. Crane summoned Roth via secure quantum line. I need the prototype. Roth didn't ask why, he just stared at Crane's face and nodded. It'll take 20 hours to reassemble, he said. Make it 15, send it on the Kensington, have it escorted by Phantom-class cloakers. No chatter, no signature. If they sniff it, it'll be gone before it reaches range. You really going to push that button? Crane looked him dead in the eye. I'd rather end the war with a scream than let Earth die begging. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Earth began to brace. Martial law expanded to every remaining free city. Civilians were assigned defense roles. Farmers became ammo loaders. Students became drone techs. Elders were offered evacuation. Most refused. In old Tokyo, Crane made a rare public address from the Terran emergency tower, his face broadcast on crumbling hollow screens, on emergency projectors, on tablets, clutched by trembling hands in bunkers and kitchens. In 3 days, the Empire intends to end us. They've brought their fleets there. Machines, their arrogance, they believe. We will kneel once they show us our size. Let me be clear, size does not determine victory. We do not have the most ships or the most soldiers or the most advanced weapons. What we do have is the unshakable will to decide who we are, what we stand for, and what we'll never become. We are not citizens of an empire. We are sons and daughters of Earth, and we would rather be ash than subjects. Feed cut before the applause, not that. He needed it 16 hours until impact. The enemy fleet was now inside the outer range. Moon base picked up distorted signal, Empire ships bouncing pings off the sun to test blind spots. They were circling Earth like sharks. Movement patterns are scattered, Gideon reported. Unusual, not traditional sea protocol. Crane narrowed his eyes. What are they doing? I believe they are searching for a breach, a leak in the net. Then he understood. They weren't going to attack Earth directly, not yet. They were going to slip through one needle at a time, bypass the defense grid, and gut Earth from the inside. Surgical cold. Classic Imperial doctrine. Sound the bell, Crane growled. Phase 1 begins now. Phase 1 was Earth's most desperate trick. They had built it in the ashes of the Arcturus massacre. Quietly in orbit, dozens of refit mining platforms re-engineered as automated defense spiders, silent, fast, hidden inside asteroids and junk. They didn't look like weapons until they moved. The moment the first Empire ship broke Terran space, 29 defense spiders activated. They launched magnetic harpoons, latching onto hulls and drilling into engines. Then they detonated plasma cores inside the vents. The Empire lost 11 ships in the first 5 minutes. Not a single Terran ship had fired yet. It wasn't war, it was sabotage. Exactly what Crane wanted, but retaliation came fast. A dozen enemy destroyers opened fire at once, blanketing space in kinetic fire. Satellites vaporized, drones vanished. The Titan perimeter, Earth's oldest satellite defense wall, was annihilated in 17 seconds. Crane watched the feed in grim silence. Report: Titan gone, 48 relay towers offline, 3 Terran stations failing. Atmosphere integrity. Losses high. He didn't ask how high. Didn't matter. 6 hours to impact. Kensington had made it to drop point. Project Abyss was armed, hidden. The fleet above Earth was now engaging fully. Over 600 ships had committed to battle. Earth's fleet, less than 300 vessels strong, launched to meet them. Every pilot knew the odds. None of them turned around. Crane stood at command with Tron, watching the skies light up with distant thunder. Every blip on the map represented a crew, a soul, a name. They're holding better than expected, Tran said softly. Crane nodded. Doesn't mean they'll survive. 30 minutes to impact. Then the emergency signal hit. Breach detected. Strategic point Alpha. Terraform Zone 5. Crane's stomach sank. They had gotten through, somehow. Somewhere a drop unit, a stealth ship. Something had bypassed Earth's orbital net and made landfall deep in the African desert. Crane turned to the nearest officer. Deploy the Red Division. Full kit. No. Capture protocols. Sir, we don't even know what they dropped. Then find out while they're still warm. The Red Division dropped hard and fast. 30 black armored shock troops trained for one thing: urban annihilation. They were the last living division. Handpicked by Crane himself, they found the drop site smoking in the sand. Black cylinder, inside it nothing. Empty. That's when the EMP went off and half of Earth's southern defense grid went dark. Cameras died. Drones fell from the sky. Turrets froze. A second later, 2 more drop pods hit. Elsewhere, both carrying infiltration units. Earth was being picked apart from the inside now, piece by piece. Crane ordered immediate reconsolidation of all orbital forces, but it was too late. 15 minutes to impact, the Empire's main cannon ships began powering up. Their cores pulsed with gravitational energy. Their shields shimmered. They were lining up the kill shots. 1 strike could tear through a Terran city. 3 could level the planet. Crane's hand hovered over the override key, the one connected to Project Abyss. Time to weapon ignition if ordered, he asked. Gideon replied, calm as always. 78 seconds. Crane exhaled. He looked up at the display, looked out into space, and then he whispered, let them see. He turned the key. The weapon was live. Out in space, the Empire didn't notice it at first, just another rock floating through space until it shifted, until it began to hum, until the center of it collapsed inward, forming a pin-prick of light surrounded by devouring black, until gravity screamed, ships twisted, metal folded, engines failed. The nearest dreadnought didn't explode. It imploded in on itself, crushed like a tin can under the pressure of a newborn singularity. 7 others followed. Seconds, then the field began to spread. Earth's skies glowed with the light of dying ships. Crane watched without blinking. Status: 21 enemy ships gone, rest or scattering. Do not pursue, Gideon chimed again. Field instability approaching critical mass. If it grows any further, risk to Earth will escalate. Crane hesitated. His finger hovered over the abort key. 1 tap would shut it down, but 1 second too long. Now, he said. The field collapsed. The black hole closed like a fist. The stars stopped bending, and just like that, the screaming stopped. The surviving Empire fleet had lost formation. Panicked, scattered. Crane grabbed the nearest comm unit. Roth now. Clean sweep, push them into the dark. The Admiral's voice roared back gladly. The Terran fleet surged forward. What had begun as a slaughter was now a counteroffensive for the first time in the history of Earth's subjugation. The Empire was on the run. The Empire didn't retreat. They recoiled like a hand slapped by fire. They pulled back fast, shifting formations, abandoning kill lanes, dropping thousands of kilometers away from Earth's inner orbit. But it wasn't surrender. It was strategy, a pause, a recalculation. Because for all the damage Earth had done, 27 Imperial vessels crushed in the black M of Project Abyss, the core of the fleet still hung there, watching, waiting, and worse, the Empire now knew Earth wasn't bluffing. Crane stood in the center of command, eyes locked on the live feed of the ruined stretch of space above them. Debris spun silently, shattered holes floated like corpses in a tide, but it wasn't victory, not yet. Report, he snapped. Major Tran answered instantly. Orbital net holding, Titan region restabilizing. Phase 1 defenses still active, but we've confirmed at least 4 breaches on the surface. Enemy infiltration units landed undetected. During the retreat, Crane didn't swear. He just narrowed his eyes. How many? Tran hesitated. 4 teams minimum. 2 confirmed in Sector 9, 1 near Old Geneva, last team possibly underground. In North America. Targets. Tran tapped a pad, sending the profiles to the central hollow table. Civilian disruption, energy, infrastructure, command destabilization. Looks like they're going for hearts and heads. They always did. Kill the will. Not just the weapons. Classic Imperial doctrine. That same night, one of the Infiltration teams hit Geneva. It wasn't a military base, wasn't even important tactically, but it was a symbol once the center of Earth's diplomacy back before they handed sovereignty to the Empire. For protection, Crane watched from the command feed as fire tore through the central plaza. Empire shock troopers, lean bone white. Exosuits, silent weapons absolute. Efficiency moved through the district. Like surgeons, no wasted rounds, no collateral, every kill intentional. Civilians died in the hundreds, no warnings, no negotiation, just clean. Deliberate horror. By the time Red Division units arrived, the Empire squad had already vanished into the tunnels beneath the city, leaving only corpses and burned banners. They're not trying to take ground, Roth said over CCOMs. They're trying to send a message. They already did. Crane muttered, now we send one back. He activated Directive 7. It had never been used before, designed in secret by the original Terran Rebellion Council, long before Crane had taken command. Built for one purpose only, open the door to brutality, no more arrests, no more warnings. Every infiltrator caught will be tried in the field, executed without ceremony, publicly if possible. No burial, no mercy. Crane gave the speech from the execution deck at Luna Station, just meters from the sealed Terran gate. The Empire believes humanity can't stomach war, that we flinch at blood, that our morals are a weakness, but they've forgotten something. Our morals were built in the mud and fire, in the screams of people just trying to survive. We didn't become weak, we became tired. Now we're awake, and we remember what it takes to win. Behind him, 6 captured infiltrators knelt, hands bound, helmets stripped. Not one of them begged. Crane nodded once. The shots rang out. The feed was broadcast live, and the message reached every dark corner of the Empire's ears. But while Earth showed its teeth, the cracks inside began to deepen. In old Chicago, anti-Crane protesters began organizing again, underground. Scattered smart, they weren't Empire loyalists, they weren't collaborators. They were scared. You're going to get us all killed, one broadcasted from a hijacked news node. This isn't resistance, this is suicide. With speeches, you think courage feeds children, you think firepower grows food. They called themselves the New Accord. Cowards wrapped in desperation, but Crane knew the danger wasn't in their words, it was in their timing. Fear was contagious, and the Empire knew it. The next infiltration came from within, not from the sky, from the command ranks. 3 officers from Fleet Logistics were caught rerouting fuel cells, trying to slip them into a neutral freighter scheduled to exit orbit on a supply mission, a freighter that didn't exist. Destination unknown. But the fuel would have powered 6 Terran warships, and once gone, it would be impossible to recover. Crane didn't wait for the tribunal. He walked into the detention bay. Himself, no guard, no ceremony. The officer stood when he entered, trying to explain, stammer, justify. We didn't betray Earth, one of them said. We just don't want to die for. Crane shot him in the face. The others froze. He turned to them. You don't want to die for Earth. They didn't speak. Then you won't. 2 more shots. He walked out without a word. By dawn, Earth's inner cities were eerily quiet. The riots had stopped, the protests silenced, but the fear remained. And fear was a blade, one that cut in both directions. Crane gathered his inner circle for what would be the most dangerous meeting of the war so far. This isn't just a siege, he said. This is psychological warfare. The Empire isn't trying to overwhelm us with numbers, they're trying to make us destroy ourselves. What's your play? Admiral Roth asked. Crane pointed to the holo map. Give them something they can't ignore. Target so bloody, so personal that abandon the long game and come at us all at once. Where? Crane tapped one red marker on the map. The Velos ring, an orbital station. Abandoned after the first phase of Earth's rebellion, half finished, full of scrap but technically still listed as a civilian trade dock on Old Empire maps. Why there? Terran asked. Because they'll think we're hiding something, a weapon, a base, anything they can justify. Blasting out of the sky, we leak it. They bite, we wait. Wait for what? Crane's voice turned cold. For them to put all their eyes on VOs. Then we drop the second Abyss core behind their fleet and close the jaws. The plan was insane. A second gravitic weapon was half assembled on Mars, never tested, never calibrated. It could detonate in the wrong direction, collapse too close to Earth, tear a hole in space that couldn't be closed, but it was the only card left, and Crane was out of fear. The leak went out 3 hours later. Classified communique intercepted by Empire-friendly civilian networks, mentioning a Terran prototype deployment at Velos ring. As expected, the Empire jumped. By the next morning, 20 ships peeled off formation and headed straight for the station, just as Crane had hoped. But what he didn't expect, what he couldn't, was the presence of Myra aboard one of the leading cruisers, the envoy, the face of the Empire. He was supposed to be untouchable, a messenger, not a commander, and now he was coming into Earth's killbox. Tran stared at the screen. We could end it right now. Crane said nothing then. Prep the kill fleet. Let's put the nail in the skull. But Murrah didn't come blind. He brought interceptors, stealth probes, counter AI virus swarms. The approach to VOs lit up with electronic warfare, firewalls melting, drones glitching midair, orbital satellites turning on each other. The trap was failing. Crane's forces held back as long as they could. Then he gave the order, detonate early, sir. The core isn't fully positioned. Detonate now. The second Abyss core tore open space like a screaming wound. It didn't hit as cleanly as the first, but it was enough. 7 Empire ships vanished, 1 cracked in half, 2 more lost power and drifted into debris fields, colliding with old stations, and Morok's cruiser gone from scanners. But still something felt off. Gideon Crane barked. Rescan the detonation radius. Confirm kill on Myra's vessel. Pause, then static, then no wreckage. Confirmed. Cruiser telemetry ceased, but quantum signal suggests short range displacement, not disintegration. He jumped. Affirmative. Likely emergency. Folds to protected zone. Crane slammed his fist on the console. So close, so damn close. Then the Empire responded hard. The full fleet shifted back into strike formation. No more probing, no more posturing. And at the head of it, not a warship, but a crucifix-shaped dreadnought. A message, not just war. Judgment. Crane stared at the screen, then let them come. They called it the Judgment. Fleet, 12 Empire warcruisers, 4 dreadnoughts shaped like Gothic monoliths. 1 super carrier, its hull laced with gold and obsidian trim, wings spread wide like a mechanical seraph, at the front glowing with divine arrogance. The Empire's flagship, The Vindicator. Mirak was alive, and now he wasn't. Hiding behind treaties or envoys or back. Channeled diplomacy, he was bringing war. Down from the stars like a curse. Commander Hal Crane watched it all unfold from the heart of Terran command. Surrounded by officers who looked less like leaders and more like survivors. Waiting for the blast. Formation. Major Tran's voice was tight. Classic Pincer, they're splitting at the Kuiper line, half of them will hold. Orbit, the rest are headed straight for the Earth-Moon defense axis, no feints. No misdirection. They want to be seen, Crane muttered. They want this remembered. Roth appeared on the command holo screen, his face pale beneath the flicker of battle lights. We won't survive this unless we fracture their fleet. Straight engagement will wipe us in minutes. I'm not giving them a straight engagement, Crane replied. You've got a plan? Crane nodded slowly. I do, and it's going to get a lot of our own people killed. The plan was called Protocol Eclipse. It had been theorized long before the rebellion began, back when Earth still pretended peace was possible. In a backroom file buried under levels of encryption only Crane could access, it had sat untouched. Last resort, it called for Earth's atmosphere to be weaponized, not by fire, not by missiles, by light. The Earth's solar array belt, built for power harvesting centuries ago, was the largest non-military satellite grid. The system, designed to reflect and refract solar rays to energy collectors. On the surface, non-combatant civilian. Until Crane's engineers got their hands on it. We'll reroute all stored energy into a focused thermal sweep, Chief Engineer Radek explained, pacing across the briefing room with madness in his eyes. Then bounce it through the belt using the rotation mirrors, turn the whole array into a coordinated sun lens. And if it fails, Roth asked. We boil our own skies, Radek said bluntly. Crane stood by the window, looking out at the dark. Then we make damn sure they're under it when it fails. While the engineers reprogrammed the solar belt, Crane turned his attention to Earth's last standing fleet, just under 200 ships, a shadow of what they started with. He gave the order. Divide, scatter, break into cells. Each squadron chooses its own vector. 1. Purpose, mislead, distract, pull them out of alignment. We won't survive full combat, but we don't have to win. We just have to buy time. Every second you give us will turn the sky into a furnace. The battle started as the Earth rotated into solar alignment. Crane stood in the center of command, dressed in black combat plating, hands gripping the cold edge of the holo table. Gideon spoke first. Contact in range, multiple enemy vessels accelerating past Mars line. First wave will impact lunar shield in 8 minutes. Solar convergence window 14 minutes. Crane nodded once. We'll hold them in space. Earth's fractured fleet ignited. Like a swarm of sparks, fighters darted between asteroids, dive-bombing cruisers, and disappearing, frigates looped behind moons and flared their engines, pulling enemy sensors away from the solar belt. The Empire, slow and powerful, responded. With overkill, they wiped whole squadrons off the map with single bursts of antimatter torpedoes, dreadnoughts, shattered Terran carriers in a flash of light and shredded metal. Bodies floated in vacuum. Fires burst and died. Seconds, and still Earth's pilots fought like devils. One commander call signed Golem flew his burning Corvette straight into the hull of a pursuing Cruiser, the explosion knocked it off course, giving another squad time to escape. Another Lieutenant Bray opened a wormhole tunnel too close to plasma vent, sacrificing himself to mislead two enemy ships into a gravity trap. Every move bought seconds, every death was counted. Crane watched it unfold, jaw locked. Gideon, he snapped, belt status 86% power, alignment complete, rotation in progress. Window of strike opens in 6 minutes. Moon shield is failing. Roth came through on comms again. Hal, he said, his voice ragged. They've breached the shield, we're exposed. I know, Crane replied. Hold your ground. Half my ships are gone, then hold with the other half. On the surface, Earth began to darken as the solar belt angled its mirrors. The skies turned cold, light twisted, shadows stretched. Birds stopped flying, entire cities slipped into a strange dusk as the sun's direct beams were siphoned into orbit. People came out of shelters to look up, and when they did, they saw the sky glowing, not blue, not gold, but white. Hot. Terran leaned in, whispering, "It's working." Crane's reply was like stone. Then give the order. The solar lens fired in 3 stages. First, a wide pulse, blinding light reflected through space and slammed into the upper atmosphere like a silent hammer. It didn't burn, it superheated the ionosphere, disrupting shields, scrambling signals. Second, a narrowed beam focused onto the lead formation of the Imperial fleet. The Vindicator took the hit. From Earth's surface it looked like a star had fallen. The Empire's flagship, once invincible, once divine, caught fire in the vacuum of space. Its shields collapsed, armor peeled, core reactors boiled. Crane watched its icon flicker, then die. Kill confirmed, Gideon whispered, but the 3rd stage failed. One of the main mirrors, old, rusted, never meant for military use, cracked under the strain. The beam misaligned, firing harmlessly into empty space. The rest of the fleet pushed forward. They weren't broken. They were furious. Then came the second blow, an Imperial torpedo, stealth fast, impossible to track, pierced the upper crust of the Earth and detonated near Old Santiago. Tectonic burst, not a crater, a rupture. Half the Chilean region split open like a wound. Mountains crumbled, rivers boiled. The entire Pacific network went offline. Crane barely flinched. Reroute ground comms, evac the survivors through the tunnel nets. But Terran began. Crane cut him off. Do it, we lose the core, we lose everything. And that's when the last transmission came. Myra, somehow still alive, somehow still speaking, a broadcast sent across every open Terran frequency. He stood on the deck of a blackened Imperial cruiser, half lit, his robes torn, his face burned but proud. You killed thousands. Today, burned our ships, ripped through our fleet like animals. I commend your savagery. But listen to me now. This war is already over. You've made Earth ungovernable, unlivable. You've chosen ashes over order. When we land, when we descend, you'll beg for chains. Crane didn't answer. He didn't need to. Instead, he gave the final order. Scramble Squad 21, target Myra's ship. No return vector, no extraction, all fuel committed to impact. Trans spun, sir, that's a suicide run. No, they'll never make it past. No. Crane looked at the screen, then the men around him. This ends with him. Squad 21 launched 5 minutes later, 3 ships barely held Together, outdated shielding but fast. Faster than anything the Empire expected. To see again, they blasted past Earth's orbit and split their vector, one dove. Into debris, another skimmed an enemy hull, the third punched through plasma. Mirak's ship crippled, flickering. Tried to turn too slow, squad leader. Vance took the final comm for Arcturus. Then the feed died, so did the ship, so did Mirak, back in command. Crane watched the tactical feed go silent. No celebration, just silence. Tran looked at him. He's gone. Crane nodded. Then maybe Earth has another day. There was no cheer, no celebration, not even a whisper, when Mirak's ship exploded, split open like a burning coffin and swallowed by its own failing core. No one raised their fists. No victory chants, no roaring comms, no relief, just silence. Commander Hal Crane stood over the hollow table, staring at the empty spot where Myra's flagship had been. It blinked once, then disappeared. Gone, a symbol crushed, the Empire's voice silenced. And still Crane felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, no vindication. Just the weight. One man dead didn't end this war, and Earth had lost too much to even pretend it mattered anymore. Update, he said quietly. Major Tran didn't need to be told twice. Debris from the Vindicator still falling toward low orbit. We've got minor impacts over northern Europe, fires in the sky, civilian morale tanking. Fleet, still 50+ enemy ships active. We've taken down nearly 100, but their rear is rotating new vessels into the belt. They're not pulling out, they're reloading. Crane's jaw flexed. Of course they weren't retreating. Mirak's death wasn't the end, it was the start. Now they'd come without pretense, without speeches, no envoys, no negotiations, just wrath. Hours later, Admiral Roth patched in from his crippled command cruiser. He looked like hell. Part of his face was bandaged, his left eye was missing, one shoulder sagged from a field splint, but his voice still iron. Vindicator's dead, he said. They're stalling out there. You've got maybe 8 hours before they try a full descent. They'll go for ground incursion. Crane asked. Has to be. They've failed in orbit. The only thing left is boots in the dirt. Crane nodded slowly. Then we turn Earth into a graveyard. Operation Scorched Vian began at Oro 400 TST. The order was simple. Every known descent zone is to be weaponized. We're not defending cities. We're not holding ground. We're turning the land into a trap. Collapse every structure. Flood the tunnels. Set fire to anything you can't salvage. Leave them nothing but ash and ruin. It wasn't just a defense doctrine. It was an act of spite. If the Empire wanted Earth, they'd have to take what was left of it. Crane walked through Old Geneva the next morning, boots crushing rubble, air thick with smoke. What was once a symbol of peace was now scorched black, burned flags, dead glass windows, blood dried. On white stone steps, a group of civilians were helping Red Division soldiers wire explosives into a subway station, rigging it to collapse once enemy infantry moved in. They were kids, teenagers, one maybe 14. Crane stopped beside them, watched. One of the boys looked up, saw him. You really think this will stop them? The kid asked. Crane met his eyes. No, but it'll cost them. The boy nodded once, then went back to work. By midday, the first drop ships breached Earth's atmosphere. 20 of them spread across 5 continents, each shaped like a black spearhead, each carrying 100 Imperial Infantry, elite, no grunts, no rookies. Just pure precision killers, the kind. They used to break rebellion worlds, but Earth wasn't like the others, in they. African Wastes, a team of 20 Empire. Troopers dropped into what looked like a collapsed refugee zone. They moved in. Fast and tight, weapons drawn, 10 seconds later, the entire valley floor detonated. A magma line had been rigged. With seismic charges, the ground. Liquefied heat surged, every Empire soldier in that squad burned alive. No remains left to bury. In old Chicago, enemy units breached the surface into what they believed was a comms relay hub. They found children, then found machine guns hidden in the walls. Every hallway was a coffin, but not all traps. Held in the ruins of New Athens, a reinforced Empire battalion broke through the kill corridors. They marched over the dead, scorched through buildings, crushed bunkers under plasma hammers. They planted their flag atop the ruins and began transmitting. Their message was short: Earth is lost, we are the future. Crane got the feed in real time. He responded immediately. Target that position, orbital strike now. Train looked up stunned. Sir, we've still got survivors and they're gone. Fire. The beam came down less than 3 minutes later, a silver column of energy from the last functional satellite cannon sliced through New Athens like a blade. Through wet paper, everything burned. Everything died, enemy and ally alike. Later that night, Crane stood over the reports. 13 drop zones, 9 resisted. 4 fell. Estimated casualties 45,000. Dead. Tran spoke, voice soft. The people are scared, sir. They're asking if we're still in control. We never were, Crane muttered. We've been bleeding since the first day. Now we're just trying to make the blood cost something. That's when the call came, encrypted, untraceable, but the voice on the other end, human, familiar and unwelcome. Crane, it said. He didn't speak at first, just stared at the console. You're still there, brother? The voice asked again. Crane leaned forward. Slowly, John. Crane, commander presumed dead, lost during the Arcturus massacre until now. The voice continued, calm but broken. I survived. The Empire didn't kill me. They took me. Crane stayed silent. They kept me alive, made me watch, made me learn. I was in their hands for years until I saw what they really were and what we really were. Where are you? I'm on their ship, there. New Ark, the one behind the third moon. I escaped the fleet. I had help. Crane's eyes narrowed. Why are you calling me? To tell you to run. Wrong call. John's voice cracked. How? There's no winning this. I've seen their next move. It's not war, it's annihilation. They've got a sun killer real ready. You've got less than 2 days. Crane's blood froze. A sun killer. Rumored, never confirmed. A weapon that didn't just burn a planet, it extinguished it, turned its star into a black hole, collapsed the entire system. Total eraser. Why warn me? Crane asked. John was quiet for a long time. Then, because even after everything, you're still my brother. Crane stared at the screen. Where's the device? John gave coordinates, one last string of numbers. Then the feed went dead. Crane walked out of the comms room and into the war chamber. Everyone turned. He said only one thing: the Empire doesn't want Earth, they want to erase the sun. We've got 48 hours. The room went dead silent. Crane's words echoed through the command bunker like a death sentence. They want to erase the sun. Even Gideon, Earth's AI core, paused for a full second before responding. Confirming possibility, stellar collapse. Weaponry theorized in Empire-class Theta. Archives no known functional. Deployment probability of success. 63.4%, 4%. That was it, 63%. A flip of a coin and then some for the fate of an entire star. Terran stepped forward, pale and sweating, if that. Weapon fires. Crane didn't blink. No Earth, no Mars, no moons, no stations. No fleet, nothing. It would take days. Right? Terran asked, grasping for anything. Collapse, ignition, death. Spiral, that's not instant. Gideon answered before Crane could. Estimated timeline, 8 minutes from ignition to full system annihilation. Survivability odds for planetary life, 0.002%. And just like that, Earth was no longer fighting a war they were racing against. Obliteration. Crane didn't waste time. He called in the council. What remained of it? Roth, Tran, Radix, 6 other key figures who still had control over major systems, fleets, or nuclear stockpiles. They met in the bunker's black chamber, designed for only one purpose: end of civilization contingencies. The lights were low, the air felt colder than usual. This is beyond any conventional war, Roth said, eyes half closed from painkillers and adrenaline. If they've got a sun killer, nothing else matters. Not the cities, not the casualties, not the ground we hold. It's that weapon or extinction. Where is it? Radix asked. Crane dropped the coordinate string his brother had sent across the table. Third moon hidden in orbit behind a comms cloak. You trust this intel? Someone asked. This brother? Crane didn't look up. I trust the numbers, and in that moment he knew what had to be done. Operation Eclipse Fall was born. It had 2 objectives. 1, find the Sunular. 2, destroy it. Not damage it, not delay it, obliterate it before it activated. Crane laid out the only feasible plan. We don't have the strength to send a full fleet, he said. They'd intercept us before we breached orbit, but we've still got one thing they don't expect. He pulled up the schematic. A Terran stealth corvette, old, damaged, outdated. The Shadow Knife. It had been mothballed for over a decade, deemed too unreliable for modern ops. Its cloaking was analog, obsolete. But that was exactly why it could work. Empire sensors are tuned to modern digital signature suppressants. They won't detect this unless they're standing on the hull. Roth exhaled. You want a ghost ship with broken tech to save the sun? Crane nodded. I want a team with nothing left to lose flying it. Within 3 hours, the Shadow Knife was pulled from the orbital scrapyard and dragged into dry dock. It was a mess. Hull breaches, sealed with mismatched plating, half the systems jury-rigged with civilian gear. No automated turrets, no shield array, no drone defense, just an engine, a gun, and a name. Crane chose the crew himself. 5 men, all hand-picked from death squads and black operations teams, every one of them considered too unstable or too dangerous for regular combat duty. Because Crane didn't want heroes, he wanted wolves. Leading the team was Lieutenant Eric Dane, a man who'd once executed his own platoon for abandoning a refugee camp. Mid-evac, court-martialed, discharged, reinstated during the rebellion. Crane remembered his file. Obedient to mission, not to people. Does not fear death, possibly does not recognize it. D&E stood at attention as Crane walked into the launch bay. Orders, he asked. Voice like broken gravel. You breached the third moon, Crane said. Find the sun killer, destroy it, no. Delays, no extraction window. Dini's lips twitched, one way then you were never coming back anyway. The shadow knife. Launched at 2:30 TST. No ceremony. No countdown, no fanfare, just 5 shadows in a broken coffin aimed at a miracle. Crane watched from the command deck, fists clenched behind his back. Gideon, he said quietly, track them. Tracking active, signal intermittent due to analog cloak, current vector stable. Estimated arrival at target 5 hours 17 minutes. While the knife disappeared into the void, Earth braced because the Empire wasn't done. They were still landing ground units, still bombing satellite cities, still trying to break the last of Terran resolve. But something had changed in the enemies' tactics. They'd stopped trying to conquer, now they were just clearing space. Crane realized it when the orbital scans showed a strange pattern. Burn zones marked destruction points. Gridded bombardments with high precision. Energy fields. They weren't bombing randomly, they were removing obstacles, flattening the terrain like someone sweeping a table clean. Crane turned to Radek. They're clearing launch lines, he muttered. For what? Crane looked up. For the Sunkular. Back on the shadow knife, Eric Dane and his team drifted through the black, silent as ghosts. Inside the cramped ship, the air was stale, and every breath sounded like it might be the last. No gravity, no voice comes, just blinks, nods, hand gestures. There. Sensors pinged nothing. The Empire's cloaking was too good, but DNE wasn't flying by sight. He had John Crane's coordinates burned into his HUD, and he had no intention of coming back without turning something into dust. Gideon gave updates in command every 30 minutes. Shadow knife holding course, signal integrity 74%. Estimated impact window in 3 hours. But then came the warning. Empire fleet shifting formation, 5 cruisers changing vector toward third moon. Crane's eyes snapped open. There. Reinforcing. Yes, Gideon replied. They suspect exposure. Can the knife make it in time? Unknown. Crane made a call. Not to a ship, not to a commander, to an old orbital array buried under the Himalayan ridge. Activate Skyfare. Tran looked at him like he'd gone mad. Skyfare is incomplete. It's enough. Skyfare was an atmospheric distortion cannon designed to reflect and amplify solar rays through the upper atmosphere, bending them around orbit like a whip. Unstable, dangerous, but capable of one thing: blinding anything within line of sight for 11 seconds. Long enough for a ghost ship to slip through a crack on board the shadow knife. Alarms flared softly, muted. DNE didn't flinch. He saw the flare burst. Behind him, raw light searing the stars. An artificial sunrise carved from mirrors and madness. Then the cloak. Pulse sensors fuzzed. The third moon appeared, and behind it, floating in perfect silence, was the device. Massive spherical gold-lined, not a cannon, not a missile, a star seed. Designed to seed a collapse inside sun's core by rewriting the fusion script. DNE stared at it through the viewport. It was beautiful, and it had to die. Go, he growled. The knife fired all its remaining thrusters, punching forward. DNE took the pilot's seat. Himself aimed the prow of the ship straight into the heart of the device. In the rear bay, his men armed their last core, an unstable antimatter rod designed to detonate on contact. No Countdown, no prayer, just gravity. The knife made contact, the screen in. Command blinked, signal lost. Gideon confirmed, detonation registered. Suncular core breached. Activation. Process interrupted, target destroyed. Crane closed his eyes, then whispered. Good, the sky didn't explode, the sun didn't vanish, but a 100 light years away, a billion sensors pinged the same message. Earth was still here, and it had just denied a god its hammer. The sun still burned. That was the only reason anyone on Earth was still alive. But it wasn't light that lit the Terran skies now, it was fire. After the Sunular was destroyed, the Empire did exactly what Crane expected. They lost their restraint, no more coordinated landings, no more surgical strikes, no more restoring order. They came down like wrath incarnate, dreadnoughts entering atmosphere with shields screaming, flattening anything below them with sonic booms alone. Plasma artillery lit up the horizon, orbital firestreak across the sky like falling gods. They weren't here to conquer anymore, they were here to burn Earth to the ground. Crane stood in Terran Command Central Operations bunker, jaw clenched, staring at the tactical screen. Dots were blinking out. Not ships, cities. Mumbai gone, La Paz gone, Cape Town flattened by a plasma column fired from substratosphere. 10 million people in seconds. Even Gideon's voice had lost its composure. Seismic activity in South America registering above 9 urban sectors. Gone, radiation clouds forming over Sub-Saharan basin. Admiral Roth's fleet has been reduced to 2 ships. Civilian loss projections now exceed 42%. Extinction level atmospheric burn window 48 hours if bombardment continues at current velocity. Crane said nothing. He didn't look away from the screen. Clears throat. Sir, we need to evacuate. Major Tran finally said voice. We've got fallback transports in the belt. We can regroup on Mars or Europa. Maybe even contact a rogue system for asylum. Crane turned to him like ice. Run. Sir, they want us to run, Crane said. They've always wanted that from the beginning. He stepped closer. They want us broken, scattered, begging, and I will burn in this chair before I let them win like that. Tran swallowed hard. Crane turned back to the screen. We hit them now, he said. Hit them with what? Someone asked. Crane tapped the screen. The last weapon. Silence. You mean? Radek whispered. Crane nodded. Yes, the Leviathan. The Leviathan was not a ship. It was a grave. A monster of Terran desperation. Built in the void between Saturns rings, piece by a legal piece. During the first days of Earth's rebellion, it had no flight crew, no bridge, no atmosphere, no life support, just one function: destroy everything. It was a mobile foundry armed with a fusion core and a gravitic slingshot system. It launched planetary-scale projectiles, kilometer-long rods of tungsten and depleted uranium. Nothing on Earth or in orbit could survive a direct hit. It had only fired once before. During a test, the target had been a dead moon. Now it was time to aim it at the living. Crane stood before the Leviathan's launch control panel deep beneath the Earth's crust in a bunker. No one outside. 5 men had clearance to access. He placed his palm on the control plate. Gideon confirmed his identity. Launch system unlocked. Leviathan targeting. Online coordinates. Crane keyed in the data. Above them 3 Empire dreadnoughts were massing, hovering like vultures over North America, charging their atmospheric weapons. Give me a clean sky, Crane barked into his comm. Within seconds, Earth's remaining rail cannons fired in unison, punching temporary holes in the Empire's upper fleet. Drones surged upward from every continent, not to fight, to distract like moths flying into flame. Buying 10 seconds, that was all Crane needed. Leviathan fire. The Earth shook, the entire crust vibrated. Lights flickered. Deep water reservoirs boiled, and from the upper edge of orbit, a rod launched from the Leviathan's barrel, 2 km long, 8 m thick, 20 million pounds of rage. It screamed through the upper atmosphere, igniting like a comet. Then it hit, not just the dreadnought, everything. The shockwave cracked the Empire's formation like glass. 3 dreadnoughts incinerated, 2 cruisers broke in half. The shock ripple tore across the sky, visible across 3 continents. The Earth held, the Empire did not. Back in the bunker, Crane's knuckles were white. Against the edge of the console, Terran whispered, "We actually did it." "No," Crane said, "we survived again for now." The retaliation was immediate. Empire vessels in orbit began randomizing their strike patterns, switching to mass annihilation protocols. Whole grid sectors were reduced to ash. Forests boiled, the ocean surface flat evaporated in areas near the equator. But Crane didn't stop. He ordered Gideon to activate every remaining weapon on Earth, regardless of condition. Old nuclear vaults, tethered satellites with unstable cores, hacked civilian weather stations converted into rail guns, put fire in their teeth, he said. And Earth did. That night Crane sat alone in what remained of the central command room. Half the walls were cracked, water leaked from busted pipes, the lights flickered intermittently, but the sun was still in the sky, and that was all that mattered. He stared at the broken photo in his hand, his brother John back when they still wore the same uniform. Before Arcturus, before war, before betrayal and warnings and Sunilers, he didn't cry. He hadn't cried in years, but he felt something hollow settle deeper inside his chest. Roth patched in again. He looked worse, blood dried on his collar, a bandage around his jaw, but his voice was steady. "I've got 2 ships left," he said. "We're not coming back, but we'll take out another carrier before we go." Crane nodded. "Good hunting. And you?" Crane looked around the broken room. "I stay. You sure?" Crane gave a ghost of a smile. "Where else would I go?" Roth nodded. "See you in the next war." Then the feed cut. Gideon spoke next. "Enemy reinforcements en route. Estimated time to final orbital cleansing strike 4 hours. Crane stood, adjusted his coat. "Then let's make the last 4 hours hurt." He walked to the exterior platform. The sky above was red, not with sunset, with flame, with ash, but somewhere in that chaos, a light still shined. It was the sun, burning, unbroken, still here, because Earth was still here, even if only for one more day. The sky never went dark that night, even when the sun dipped beneath the shattered horizon, even when half the power grid failed and the cities fell too. Blackouts, the sky still glowed. Fires reflected off smoke and ash, a red glow that didn't flicker like fire light, but pulsed like a heartbeat, a dying one. Commander Hal Crane stood on the remains of Terran Command's west balcony, the wind dry against his face, the concrete beneath his boots was fractured, the Steel guardrail warped from heat. 1. More tremor and the whole thing would collapse into the gorge below. But Crane didn't move because everything that needed to be done was already in motion. Inside the war room, what remained of it, Gideon's voice crackled over half-fried speakers. Incoming transmission, source external origin. Galactic core relay node authenticated. As Empire Command Protocol Zeta 3, Crane stepped back inside, brushing soot from his shoulders. Play it, he said. Screen sparked, fuzzed, then stabilized into a hologram, an alien, not Myra, not anyone Earth had seen before. Its face was pale violet, smooth, no mouth, no eyes, just 3 slits across its head, and a vertical core of faint light in its chest. Regal armor, tall collar. It didn't blink, it didn't need to. You have persisted beyond all logic, the being said. Its voice was pure vibration, cold and clean. You have refused surrender, rejected salvation, denied integration. Now you face final consequence. Crane didn't flinch. Name. The hologram paused, executive thorized by the galactic seat to enact full cleansing of your system. No reclamation, no archives, no memory. You have 1 hour to issue a full surrender, complete biological disarmament, dissolution of species. Command. You have this chance once. The hologram flickered and cut. Crane stood in silence. The others around him, what few officers remained, waited. Then he spoke. Prepare the Phoenix Protocol. Every head turned. You're serious? Terran asked, his voice from smoke inhalation. We don't even know if it works. We've never tested it. We don't have time to test, Crane said. Exath won't wait. And I'll be damned if we let them erase our bones like we never existed. The Phoenix Protocol wasn't a weapon, it was a virus, an AI distributed code chain that embedded itself into every surviving Terran system, biometric, digital, satellite, drone, mech, and rewrote core programming. If it worked, it would do one thing: link every surviving Terran weapon system into a singular net. Weapons would fight independently. Satellites would become automated. Defense units, drones would act without orders. Earth would become a thinking battlefield. No soldiers, no orders, no fall back, just war, autonomous, relentless, final. Crane looked at Terran. Do it. The Phoenix signal went out an hour later. It hit the sky like a pulse, riding what little was left of the power grid, leaping from crumbling towers to satellites to broken bunkers. Some exploded, some rebooted, some screamed with static before falling quiet, and then the silence shifted. Mechs once shut down for lack of operators stood. Gun platforms once disabled rotated. Drones lifted from ash piles and realigned. They woke up. Crane watched it unfold on the master screen. Earth wasn't a war zone anymore. It was a living weapon. Executive TH responded within minutes. The sky cracked. 2 new dreadnoughts entered orbit, sleek, black, and lined with plasma arrays. Their purpose was clear. The final sweep. No survivors, no Earth, just a tomb of heat and gravity. Crane walked out of command for the last time. He descended into the old tunnels, remnants of the First Global War, deeper than the Empire knew. Below their scanners, below the reach of orbital fire, there he met with the legacy unit. 6 men, old, not officers, not soldiers anymore, just fighters. They stood when he entered. Are we at the end? One asked. Crane nodded. But we've still got 1 punch left. He pointed to the launch tube behind them. It housed Project Ember, a single ship, small, ugly, laced with burn scars, meant for one thing only: to carry the last record of humanity, DNA banks, cultural archives, encrypted history, everything we were, are, and ever hoped to be. It was never meant for combat. It was meant to outlive the fall. Crane turned to the unit. One of you takes it. They looked between themselves. Then one stepped forward. Luca Brenner, ex-Marine, the last surviving pilot of the Ares defense wing. I'll fly it, Crane nodded. You don't wait for a launch window, he said. You go when we fire the last cannon. They'll be looking at us, not you. Brenner grinned. That's how I like it. Back on the surface, Phoenix Protocol was fully awake. The ground moved. Old weapon bunkers cracked open and rolled out their payloads. AI tanks began firing before they had targets. Abandoned orbital satellites fired in random bursts as if Earth itself was lashing out. Executive TH's fleet responded, but they weren't prepared. Because for the first time, Earth wasn't fighting with logic, it was fighting with rage, uncontrolled, unpredictable, burning rage. Crane climbed to the final overlook on the broken edge of the old world. Council's ruin. He looked up. TH's ships were descending, arcs of plasma behind them, shrouded in fire, cities below them already gone. But Earth had one last scream. Crane raised the control rod in his hand. The Leviathan had one rod left, just one. He targeted the lead dreadnought. Said nothing, just pressed the key. The Earth shook. The rod fired. It tore through the sky faster than anything visible, and it hit. The dreadnought didn't explode. It cracked, split, folded, then collapsed in on itself, dragging a second ship into the wake. The explosion was silent, crushing, final. In the chaos, Brenner launched Project Ember, slipped between heat trails and plasma debris, dipped behind the shadow of Thal's ruptured cruiser, and shot into deep space unnoticed. Crane watched the silent blue streak vanish into the dark. There went everything they ever were. Then the final hit came. The second dreadnought unleashed its full payload. A singularity warhead dropped straight into the Earth's crust. Crane didn't run, didn't scream. He just looked at the fire coming down and whispered, almost smiling, "We didn't kneel. Earth didn't die all at once. It buckled." The singularity warhead hadn't hit city. It hadn't even aimed for population centers. No, Executive Thal wanted a clean eraser. He wanted Earth to vanish from physics. The warhead had been drilled deep by kinetic launch. It entered the mantle, then detonated. Tremors came first, low, long drawn out like a groan from the planet's core. Then came the cracking. Not buildings, not mountains, the crust itself. Tectonic plates ripped apart as the singularity began to feed, pulling matter inward, turning soil into vapor. It wasn't just destruction, it was unmaking. Crane stood in the last stable command shelter, nearly 200 m underground. Emergency lights flickered, painting the walls red and gold. Debris fell every few seconds. Oxygen scrubbers were failing. He leaned against the steel frame of the main doorway, staring at the collapsing map of Earth on the hollow screen. Gideon's voice, now slower, distorted by corrupted nodes, read off its final report. Core destabilization at 73%. Atmospheric collapse in southern hemisphere confirmed. Global extinction event projected within 4 hours. Crane nodded. Understood. He turned to Major Terran, burned. Bleeding, arm in a sling but still on his feet. How many left? Crane asked. Terran checked his tablet, eyes twitching at each flicker of lost data. Less than 30,000 scattered across bunkers, half of them underground, some not even reachable. Crane didn't blink. Pull them, sir. Bring them to Site Sigma-5. Terran looked like he'd been punched. Sigma-5, that site's not built for civilians. It's experimental. We never even finished. Exactly, Crane cut in. They won't expect us to use it. It's shielded, buried under 5 km of bedrock, and it wasn't on any of their maps. Gideon can't survive a full core breach. Crane looked him dead in the eyes. We're not saving Gideon, we're saving people. Sigma-5 had been a myth even to most of Earth's brass, a secret chamber dug during the last century's paranoia when people still feared underground nuclear wars and AI revolts. It wasn't a bunker. It wasn't even a city. It was a seed vault, not just for plants, for humans. Cryogenic tubes, DNA banks, repopulation tech, artificial wombs, atmospheric printers, terraforming seed code. Everything Earth would need to restart, if ever given the chance. Crane knew it wouldn't survive a direct hit from orbit, but maybe, just maybe, if they got deep enough, sealed the right doors, cut the power at the right moment, it might be missed. A whisper of survival buried beneath the ashes. It took them 3 hours to move who they could. Old men, children burned out, civilians, pregnant women, scientists, engineers, soldiers too. Wounded to stand, Crane led the convoy down himself, 15 transports limping across cracked ground, the sky above them choked with fire and black ash. Twice they were hit by falling debris. Once they lost a truck to a landslide opened by seismic rifts. The screams inside still echoed in Crane's skull. But they made it. 271 survivors. The rest were either unreachable or already dead. Sigma-5's doors were thicker than any other on the planet. 10 m of neutronium steel, mechanically sealed, no electronics, just gears and levers made to survive imps and energy disruptions. Crane oversaw the lockdown personally. Once the last group was inside, once the doors sealed, no one was getting back out, not for centuries. Are you coming with us? Terran asked as the airlock hissed. Crane shook his head. Someone has to be the last. Terran grabbed his shoulder hard. Don't pull this martyr. An NBSP, Commander, we need you. They need you. You don't need a ghost leading survivors, Crane said. You need a clean page, someone without blood on their hands. You saved Earth. Crane gave a bitter smile. No, I made it bleed slower. He stepped back. Seal the vault. Terran didn't move. I said seal it. Then quietly, more gently, that's an order. Terran saluted, a real one, chest high, eyes filled with things he couldn't say. Then the vault sealed. Crane was alone. The surface was beyond broken now. Volcanoes had erupted across every major fault line. Ash clouds covered the upper atmosphere. The sky was red-black. The oceans had begun to boil from tectonic shifts, and above it all, Exeter Thow's last dreadnought circled slowly, scanning, watching, waiting for the final death throes. Crane climbed the cracked stairwell of the old World Council Tower, just skeleton beams and exposed supports now. Every floor he passed creaked, every breeze carried heat and dust. At the top, the world stretched before him. It was no longer Earth, it was memory. He stood there alone in full combat uniform, with the wind whipping through his hair and the sky burning. He tapped the side of his communicator. Gideon active, the AI answered barely, its voice now hollow, fragmented. You still running? Only core functions. Network failing, visual nodes offline. Processing collapsing. You see what I see? Yes. Crane looked at the world one. Last time, was it worth it? The silence lingered. Then you stood. Crane almost smiled. Yeah, we did. Then the signal cut. Gideon died silently, with dignity. Just like the rest of them above, the last dreadnought powered up its final weapon, a cannon so large it blocked out the burning sky, meant to collapse Earth's crust into the singularities core, ending any hope of regrowth or survival. Crane looked up at it, didn't move, didn't scream, just stood there, a man who had lost everything, a soldier who had given everything. And as the cannon began to hum, the horizon lit up. Not fire engines, a fleet small, broken, glitched together from stolen parts and leftover human tech, but not Terran. The transponder pinged in frequencies Earth hadn't heard in a decade. The outer colonies, rogue systems, rebel states, independent human nations that had cut themselves off after Earth fell. They had come back not to save Earth, to avenge it. The first outerworld ship struck the Empire dreadnought with a neutron lance, cracking its shield. The second launched EMP torpedoes that fried targeting systems. The third rammed straight into the power core. The dreadnought fell, not exploded, not burned. Fell like a broken god. Crane watched it spiral, watched the fires die, then closed his eyes. A voice broke through the static. Terran command. This is the Archelix, acting fleet leader of the Outer Ring. We received your signal. You are not alone. Crane tapped his comm, blood leaking from his lip, his voice faint. Too late for me. Copy that, Commander. But not for all of us, Commander Hal. Crane died standing. That's what the outer colonies told their people when the broadcast went out, uncensored, unfiltered, raw. The final image captured by the Helix recon drone showed him high atop the skeletal husk of the old council tower, staring into the blast of the Empire's final cannon as it powered down, destroyed mid-charge by the colony fleet. Strike. He didn't flinch, didn't cower. No last words, no prayers, just a man with ash on his boots and fire in his blood, daring the galaxy to remember him. And they did. By the time the Outer Ring Coalition made landfall on what remained of Earth, it was barely a planet. The singularity rupture had slowed but not stopped. Cracks ran like veins across entire continents. The oceans had receded into boiling craters. Storm systems the size of countries choked the upper atmosphere in sulfur and soot. But the coalition wasn't here to rebuild. They were here to find what was left, and they did. Deep beneath the surface, beneath the ruined cities, the vaporized mountains, the dead oceans, they found it. Sigma 5. Intact, sealed, quiet, waiting. Colonel Aaron Vask, commander of the Helix fleet and acting head of the Outer Rings Unified Command, stood inside the Sigma 5 vault chamber, the reactivation code still warm on his data pad. The cryochambers glowed faint blue. Tubes hummed softly. TR stood in the middle of it all, pale, older, thinner, but alive. His eyes locked onto Vask's uniform. "You're late," he said, voice dry. Vask almost smiled. We weren't sure there'd be anything left. To find you almost didn't, Tran pointed. Behind him, a clear tube glowing, it held data, the Terran archive history. Biology, blueprints, culture, language. Genome maps, civilizations encoded into light. Tran stepped forward. Crane didn't save Earth, not really. He saved this. Vask nodded. That's all we need. Within 48 hours, the survivors were processed, stabilized, and moved off world. The Helix fleet orbited what remained of Earth, scanning, surveying, collecting any data that survived. And then the decision came. Do we bury it? Asked Commander Eli TK, second in command of the coalitions. Dreadnought bravers fall. Or do we make them remember it? Vask didn't answer for a long time. Then he said both. The funeral was not held on Earth. It was held in orbit, aboard the Arcturus Requiquum, converted carrier retrofitted to serve as a neutral gathering point between the outer ring, the Mars Accord, and the free colonies. They came in silence, former Terran generals, smugglers from the Belt, rogue AI from the Europa Core, even a few aliens, outcasts who had broken with the Empire before it started this war. They gathered under one banner, the memory of defiance in one name, Hal Crane. The speech was short, given by Vask himself. He didn't build empires, he didn't write treaties. He didn't lead because he wanted to be followed. He led because no one else would stand. He held the line. When the stars forgot who we were, when the galaxy called us savages, slaves, unfit to speak in their councils, he didn't negotiate, he didn't kneel, he said no. He made Earth the rock they broke their teeth on. And now we carry his fire. The Terran banner was folded, burned. Not in shame, in honor, because Crane didn't want remembrance, he wanted resistance. 1 week later, the survivors of Sigma 5 were scattered across the colonies. Adopted, integrated, sheltered, but not forgotten. They carried stories, Crane's tactics, Earth's rage, the files from the archive, and slowly a new war council formed. They called it the Iron Memory, not a government, not a nation. A promise. The Iron Memory had one goal. Total retribution, not peace, not compromise, but vengeance for Arcturus. For the colonies, for the billions. Erased for Earth, Vask stood aboard his new command ship, the Crane's Wake. Looking out into the void, he tapped his "Come. Send the first wave." Targets? Asked TK. Vask didn't blink. They're holy worlds. The ones they said we could never touch. Tar exhaled. They'll call it terrorism. They called Earth's death justice. Vask turned to the starfield. Now it's their turn to explain ashes. The outer colonies had learned well from Earth's resistance, sabotage, infiltration, blackout tactics. They didn't fight the Empire in clean engagements. They infected it with 6 months, 4 Empire border worlds burned, 2 surrendered, 1 defected. The rot spread, but vengeance came at a cost. The Iron Memory's tactics weren't clean. Supply chains raided, civilians displaced, allies left behind. There was no room for mercy, not anymore. Inside the Iron Memory's hidden council chamber, deep within a shielded moon, orbiting a black star, strategists gathered around a stone table, etched into the stone in crude Terran common were the words Crane had spoken before. The final siege. We didn't kneel. Tran stood at the table, older now, but voice unshaken. He pointed to the next target, the Ryukwari at Cordy 6. Sacred site, untouched since the founding. Hitting it will send a Message. Someone hesitated. It's not a military zone, there are civilians. Tran said nothing, just looked at them. Then finally, they didn't ask if our cities had children. The attack on Cordy 6 was brutal. 3 colony ships dropped near light kinetic rods into the planet's crust, igniting firestorms that shattered centuries of relics. Billions watched it live. Empire's holy banners burning in the wind, a single iron memory transmission played on every frequency. This is what remembering feels like. Back in the Empire's throne sector, the High Lords panicked. Earth had been erased, but its ghost was still killing them. This wasn't rebellion, this was contagion. The war was no longer about control, it was about pain. Crane had won, not with weapons, not with victory, but by making Earth's final breath echo forever. Time didn't heal the wound Earth left behind. It made it fester. 2 years after the destruction of Earth, the Empire was still bleeding, not from fleets, not from sieges, from doubt. The iron memory didn't fight like an army, they fought like a rumor. They didn't take ground, they erased it. They didn't negotiate, they broadcast the names of every Imperial commander who gave the kill orders at Arcturus, at Earth, at the outer colonies, along with their home addresses, families, coordinates. Then they left it to the people, and people responded because fear was universal, and the Empire had built its throne on it. Now Earth's ghost was turning that fear against them. On the outer edge of Imperial space, the desert moon Tressa 4 burned, not from invasion, from within. Civilian uprisings, military defections, factory workers uploading virus strings into war machines and turning them inward. And in the middle of the chaos stood a single figure, face half burned, dressed in black scrap armor stitched with tan reds. Alec Dorn, former Terran infantry, presumed dead at New Athens, now high-level agent of iron memory. He'd led the uprising here personally, not to win the moon but to film its fall. The footage went viral across 100 systems. Imperial officers dragged from their towers, statues pulled down by human children, Earth lives spray painted in blood across the steel walls, and Alec Dorn staring into the camera, whispering, "You thought you erased us, but we were always the rot in your spine." A week later, Dorn met with Colonel Vask aboard the Crane's Wake, which now orbited deep space near the Riello Grave system, a known Empire ghost zone. Vask was older now, colder, still wore Earth's insignia on his left shoulder. "You made a lot of noise," Vask said. "That was the point," Dorn replied. "Any survivors?" Dorn didn't answer. "You killed everyone." Still silence. Vask leaned in. "We are not the Empire, Dorn. We don't burn cities for show. They burned our planet. That doesn't make us gods." "No," Dorn said, "it makes us judges." Across the galaxy, the iron memory split into 2 factions. The Ghost Doctrine, led by Vask and Tron, focused on surgical strikes, disruption, and crippling the Empire without collapsing the galaxy into chaos. And then there was the Red March, led by Dorn and other radicals, whose goal wasn't balance, it was fire. They believed Earth's survival meant the Empire's extinction. Every system, every world, every family tied to the throne. The Empire tried to suppress the divide, tried to tighten control, restrict media, close trade, but the more they gripped, the more systems slipped through. Rebellions flared in the core sectors for the first time in 400 years. A firebomb hit the Imperial court on Valkyris Prime. A clone noble was found, flayed in orbit over Thales Station. Whole transport fleets vanished, later found with only one survivor left alive. Sent back to deliver a message: this is your reckoning. Within the walls of the Empire, the High Lords panicked. Some called for new treaties, some for absolute retaliation, others whispered of withdrawal from the outer systems entirely, but none of them could agree on a single truth. Was the iron memory a unified enemy, or was it just an idea? On the edge of neutral space, an old human merchant named Lauren Mike sat in a cantina full of aliens who once refused to serve Earthbers. Now they begged him for news. What do they want? A Rand barkeep asked. Lauren lit a cigarette, watching the smoke curl. The stale air. They don't want your gold, or your seats in the Senate, or your favors. Then what? The barkeep asked. They want you to feel it. Feel what? Lauren exhaled smoke through his nose. What it was like to watch your world die while the stars applauded. Back in the Iron Memories Command Network, Tran met with Vask in the black ice corridors of the Wardens. Hold, their deepest facility, there. Splitting, Tran said. Dorn's gone too far. He's winning, Vask replied. Systems fall when he moves. Yeah, and we lose everything we were trying to rebuild after. He's not trying to rebuild, Vask muttered. He's trying to finish. A new message came through. That night, an encrypted feed bouncing between old Terran satellites left a drift. It was from Uranus, an inner core world, loyalist, wealthy, unshaken until now. The broadcast showed their sky burning, defense grids offline, a child's voice reading the names of every dead Earth city as the screen flickered with destruction. At the end, one sentence lingered on screen: we do not forget. The Empire retaliated. They sent 4 fleets to the suspected location of Crane's Wake. None returned. They sent assassins to kill Dorn. They were found crucified outside their own embassy. They passed emergency authority to a new high executive, Val Cortez, a hardline supremacist who once ordered the glassing of 3 independent colonies for cultural impurity. His first speech was simple: we gave them peace, they gave us plague, now we answer with fire and silence. Let no Earthborn legacy survive. But the Iron Memory was ready. They released the Echelon Protocol, a virus encoded into the Empire's own AI networks, seeded by defectors and moles. For over 2 years, it didn't shut things down, it turned them inward. Ships turned on escorts, drones attacked their own hangars, command lines reversed. Whole fleets vanished into black holes after being misrouted by false star maps. Empire commanders screamed in silence as their own empire ate itself. Back aboard Crane's Wake, Tran looked at the reports. He didn't cheer, didn't even smile. We're becoming what he feared, he said. Vask nodded slowly. I know, in the memory vaults of Sigma 5 now, reconstructed beneath the ice of Riven's moon, a hologram played for the hunt. Time, Hal Crane's voice distorted. Rough, real. If you're watching this, we lost Earth. But we didn't lose what made us Terran. That wasn't soil, that was refusal. Refusal to kneel, refusal to die. Quietly, refusal to be forgotten. The war had changed. The Iron Memory was no longer just fighting ships. They were fighting narrative. They hijacked broadcasts, rewrote history records, released files of Empire war crimes, hidden for centuries, showed every execution, every colony purged, every Terran child burned under Imperial light, and every time they did, another system turned, another flag was lowered, another statue fell. They weren't trying to win a war anymore. They were trying to end an empire. One memory at a time. The empire was dying, not in fire, not in collapse yet, but in something worse. Silent, whole sectors stopped responding. Trade hubs vanished from the grid. Command stations flickered offline, not from warheads but from absence. It wasn't rebellion, it was retreat. Planets weren't switching sides anymore. They were disconnecting, unplugging from the throne world, from the Senate, from the AI networks, going dark, going independent, going scared. And behind every silence there was a shadow, a name. Earth. Colonel Vask stood inside the dark chamber of the crane's wake, his reflection blurred in the frosted glass viewport. The stars outside felt further away than ever. They're not fighting anymore, he muttered. Tran looked up from the tactical table. That's what we wanted. Vask turned. No, we wanted them broken, not hollow. Tran didn't answer because he had felt it too, the difference. When Earth's enemies had once screamed, now they just fell quiet. Cities collapsed into apathy. No pride, no honor, no resistance, just waiting to be taken. And some part of Tran, a part that still remembered Hal Crane's face, wondered, had they gone too far? Meanwhile, Alec, Dorn, and the Red March thrived in the chaos. To them, every silence was a signal, a win, another strike carved into the bones of the Empire. Dorn stood on the bridge of the captured Imperial destroyer, righteous void now repainted with Terran blood red. His eyes were darker now, not from lack of sleep but from what he'd allowed himself to become. Next target, he growled, his second in command, a scarred woman named Carrara, handed him a data slate. Solon's Cradle Archive, world houses, backup AI of 3 imperial dynasties, minimal defenses. Dorn didn't blink. Wipe it. Kara paused. There's a civilian archaeology underneath the data core. 4 million residents. Good, Dorn said. Let them remember what Earth felt. But not all in iron memory agreed. When news of the Solon massacre reached Vask, he didn't sit, didn't pace, he just stared at the file while Tran read. It aloud. Archive vaporized. 4 million. Confirmed dead. No warning, no strike. Delay message broadcast. Earth sends its warmth. Tran looked up. You want to speak to him? No, Vask said. Then what? Vask clenched his fists. We cut him off. A full day later, Vask made the broadcast. It played across iron memory channels, unfiltered. This isn't what Crane wanted. This isn't defiance. This is vengeance wearing Earth's skin like a trophy. The Red March is no longer under our banner. Alec Dorn is rogue. Any unit siding with him will be considered enemies of memory. Dorn responded 3 hours later. His message was simple. He sat in front of a tan flag, worn and blood-stained, eyes cold. You buried our home and now you want to mourn it on your knees. I won't kneel to peace. I won't forgive the stars. If that makes me a traitor to your Earth, then maybe you were never Terran to begin with. The iron memory splintered. Half its fleets remained loyal to Vask, focused on targeted disruption and tactical strikes, still fighting with discipline, with some distant goal of peace. The other half bled red. Dorn's Red March became a cult of ruin, not a fleet. They left no Survivors, no broadcasts, only craters. They began burning neutral worlds. Systems who had stayed silent, who had not chosen either side. Silence is guilt, Dorn said, and the galaxy shuddered. Tran found Vask alone that night, staring into old video logs from Earth, not war footage, family footage. Old markets, cities, laughing children. Crane alive, smiling, young, helping someone onto a tram in downtown Boston. What are we now? Tran asked. Vask didn't answer right away. Then he said, we're orphans pretending our rage is a home. Meanwhile, within the Empire, desperation boiled. High Executive Valcortes had failed. His fleet scattered, his death squads overwhelmed by AI backlash from the Echelon Protocol. In secret, the remaining lords of the Inner Circle gathered in the Lyceum Vault, a floating citadel in a gravity-neutral field outside of any registered system. There they discussed the unthinkable. Surrender, but not openly, quietly. One whispered, we offer them the throne. Another said, they don't want it. A third asked, then what do they want? And none of them had the answer. Because Earth didn't want land, didn't want gold, didn't want recognition. Earth wanted them to bleed, but someone else was watching. A third faction, hidden, the free protocols, once known as neutral scientists, engineers and political castaways, now organizing in the shadows of collapsing systems. Their leader was a former Terran Tech Command named Silas M. Not a warrior, a builder. And he was watching Earth's children tear the galaxy apart and asking, what comes after fire? On a hollow asteroid ring in Sector 71, Silas sent a signal. Encrypted, old Terran code buried. Gideon's legacy, and it reached one place, Sigma 5, now reactivated, hidden again beneath a broken moon. Inside, Tran answered. Silas didn't greet him. Just said, Crane built us to survive. Not just to strike, he left us a chance. Tran narrowed his eyes. What kind of chance? Silas uploaded the file. It was old. Signed with Crane's biometric key. Message, if vengeance is all we have, we become what we fought. I leave this not for war but for after, when the stars ask what Earth became, let them find more than bones. Tran sat for a long time. Then he opened a new channel to Vask, to the Iron Memory Loyalists, to defectors from the Red March, to Neutral Planet, to exiled scientists, to Silas and the protocols, and he said, only one thing, let's build what comes next. The stars had changed. Once the galaxy had been ordered, mapped, ruled. Now it drifted. The Empire was shattered, not defeated in a single moment, but broken piece by piece until its spine snapped and its hands forgot how to grip. High Executor Valcortes was dead, his flagship destroyed in a suicide strike over Velcaris core, the heart of the old regime. Not by iron memory, by his own guard. Not for politics, not for peace, but because they couldn't stomach another day pretending the throne still mattered. The Red March had burned bright and fast. After the Solon massacre and the subsequent annihilation of Kairos 5, Dorn had gone silent. His followers turned on each other. Some hunted, some defected, some just vanished into the dark. Dorn himself never seen again. Some say he died during the siege of Ilad's bridge, burned alive inside a collapsing station. Others say he walked into the black unarmed, carrying only a piece of earth soil in a cracked metal box. But whatever the truth, his war was over, and the rest of humanity They were left with the silence. Colonel Vask stood alone on the deck of the crane's wake, now orbiting New Gaia, a terraforming project born from the wreckage of a once-dead moon in the edge of Sector 9. The soil was red, the skies dim, but the oxygen was clean, and children had been born there. Not soldiers, not survivors, just children. For the first time in years, Terran joined him on the deck, stepping slowly back, still bent from the radiation damage he'd taken years ago in the Phoenix vaults. They still have nightmares, TR said, nodding toward the planet. I know, Vask replied. They don't remember Earth. Vask smiled faintly. They don't have to, because Earth wasn't a place anymore. It was a principle, a shape burned into the galaxy's bones, a reminder that no world, no system, no empire was untouchable, and for better or worse, everyone remembered the free protocols led by Silas. MN had quietly rebuilt Gideon's neural core, this time without command override, without loyalty. Subroutines, not a war machine, a keeper, a witness. Gideon now managed the Terran Accord, a new coalition, not a government, not a military, but a civic flame made up of survivors, scholars, makers, healers, and even a few aliens. Because Earth had never hated the galaxy, it had only hated being forgotten. Now it was remembered, and so they built the Accord. Didn't take territory, they created arcs, traveling vaults, self-contained biospheres, and data archives, mobile cultures seeded with knowledge. They landed on failed worlds, broken moons, crashed civilizations, and restarted life. But not everyone approved. Some iron memory remnants wanted to finish the job, hunt down every last empire world, bury every last noble bloodline. But Vask made it clear, this war is over. You think they deserve mercy? One asked. No, he said, I think we do. In a quiet dome on New Gaia, Terran visited the crane memorial. It wasn't a statue, it was a cracked piece of Earth's foundation stone, one of the last recovered fragments of the old council tower. Next to it, engraved in steel, we didn't kneel. He sat in front of it for a while, spoke aloud, knowing no one was listening. Thought we'd win by fire, turns out we just survived long enough to cool down. He laughed. Hope that's enough, Hal. Years passed and the stars stopped screaming. The empire faded, not in flames but in irrelevance. Planets turned away, systems refused the old taxes. No one enforced borders anymore. Old enemies sat at the same tables. Aliens who once spat on Terran soil now taught Earth's languages to their young. And somewhere out in the void, Project Ember returned. It arrived without fanfare, a lone ancient ship scorched, damaged, faint Terran signals still humming inside cryotanks, archives, unspoiled DNA strands from Earth's wilds, fossils, literature, art. Everything Earth used to be, carried across time and space by a pilot who never made it back to tell the story. They buried him beneath New Gaia's first forest. No speech, no ceremony, just a plaque. He remembered what we were. One night Vask stood beneath those trees, older now, slower. He touched the bark of a tree grown from Earth's last soil, watched the stars shift. Tron joined him again. How long do we hold this line, TR? Vask smiled. Until no one remembers why we drew it in the first place. Tran paused, and when they forget. Vask turned, eyes bright. Then we've won. The last words ever recorded from Colonel Hal Crane, recovered from a Backup pods sealed inside Sigma 5 were played only once to classroom 2. Children born after the fire. And it went like this: we were not gods. We were not angels. We were not monsters. We were human. And that was enough.